let's do a little bit of exercise. I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm going to say, I roll a dice. Okay, that's an experiment. We're doing an experiment here. So if I'm going to roll a dice, my sample is going to be the set, right? My sample is always a set. So the set is always going to be the possible outcomes that I would get. So there's a chance my dice would land on a 1. It will either land on a 2 like that. It can land on a 1, 2, 3. It will land on 4. It will land on a 5, 1, 2, 5, or it will land on a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay. Then that is my set. That is just my sample set. My sample size, which we denote as NS, is going to be how many outcomes do I have? How many possible outcomes do I have? If we're looking at this. How many possibilities of answers can I get? It's a simple question, I promise. How many sides are there to a dice? 6, absolutely, it's 6. It's 6 sides, right, 6. Okay, now let's talk about the event set, because this is also a set, right? So let's say, for instance, my event is that we roll an odd number. What are the chances that we roll an odd number? So my event set is going to be me either rolling a 1, or rolling a 3, or rolling a 5. Okay, now that is my event set. My event size, which we will denote as NE, is how many possible outcomes can I get from my event? Anybody? How many possible outcomes can I get for the event that I want? That's it, princess. 3. Sorry, guys. And if you hear the pauses, is because my body feels like I've been walking in a desert and I really need to drink a lot of water today. All right. So my event size is 3. All right. So when we calculate the probability of any event, so in this case, we're calculating the probability that a number would be odd when you throw the dice. We're going to take our event size, our NE, which is 3, over our sample size, NS, which is 3 over 6, and therefore the probability of throwing an odd number is 2. All right, thumbs up. Everybody okay with this idea? Are we good? Amazing. All right, that is the recap of the first part. All right, let's talk about relative frequency really quickly. Now, remember we said that for relative frequency, we're also looking at the theoretical probability. Okay, we're looking at the theoretical probability. Now, the theoretical probability is what we expect will happen. Let's say, for instance, if we throw or if we flip a coin 10 times, the theoretical probability is that we must get heads 5 of those times, and we must get tails 5 of those times. If we've thrown a dice 10 times, or sorry, if we've flipped a coin 10 times, according to the theoretical probability, the probability of getting heads is half, and the probability of tails is also half. So 5 of them must be heads, 5 of them must be tails. But when we actually do an experiment, you'll find, like we did when we did our experiment, that many of us got tails 7 times, and we got heads 3 times, or something like that. Okay, now the relative frequency, no worries, Abu, lovely to see you. The relative frequency tells us the more we do something, the more times we do an experiment, the closer the experiment gets to the actual theoretical probability. So instead of doing our exercise 10 times, let's do it 1,000 times. And when we do it 1,000 times, we find that maybe we get heads 482 times, and we get tails 528 of those times. And that probability, the probability of these two, is much closer to the theoretical probability where we would need heads 500. 482 is very close to 500, and we should get tails 500 times. And 528 is closer to 500 than the other one. So the more times we do an experiment, the more likely it is to get closer to the actual answer. All right, thumbs up. Is everybody understanding relative frequency and theoretical probability? Yes, we need to do things more in order for them to get closer to the actual answer we're looking for. All right. Okay, so then we had this fun stuff. We had union, intersection, complement, right? So let's talk about the words we use for things like union, intersection, and complement, right? What do we use for union? What word are we looking for in our dialogue or in our questions when we hear the word union? What's the word we're looking for? Not you. There's a particular word. That's it, Sanele. That's the word. It's all marriage. Yes, absolutely. It's marriage. Okay. So when we see the union, and you're not wrong, Abu, it's just that the symbol for union is U, right? That's the symbol. But the word we are looking for is or. We're looking for or. What about the intersection? We know that the symbol for intersection is like an N, an upside down, or an N upside down U. What is the word that we're looking for to describe? That's it. So, Sanele and Princess, spot on. And Abu, spot on. The word that we'll be looking for is and. And the complement, we know that the complement, we always denote the complement with a comma, like that. Right? A little apostrophe, not a comma, an apostrophe, and that is not. That's it, not. All right, I'm glad we're all remembering this stuff. I was getting crickets in the earlier class, and I was like, yo, lolo, everybody, the brain, everything is on holiday. All right, then we remember that when we are looking at this, the intersection tells us the part where the two meet, and that's why this green part over here has been shaded out. The union is everything from here to there. Right? Everything. And not is always the thing that's not included. So if you look at this particular drawing over here, they're saying not A, and you can see that A is not included. A is the only thing that's not shaded, and that's what they mean by it. We can ignore the rest. It does come up, but we're going to ignore it. Okay. All right. Okay, let's go to the probability rules because these are important. And if you do not know these off by heart, I need you guys to take a screenshot. Okay, it's very important that we remember these. And Hulani, for your sake, my darling, I've actually labeled them the rules the way that they need to. So I've written the multiplication rule, the addition rule. But you'll see when we start looking at questions, they're not going to ask you, they're not going to say, use the multiplication rule, use the addition rule. No, they're just going to say, calculate for this. All right, but we still do need to know them and how they work. All right, you need to remember these, please, Abu. It's quite important that we do. Okay, so take a screenshot, everyone. 5 seconds. 4. That was 1 because I was sipping water. They caught you, or they caught you off guard. Yes, because you are writing a department paper. Okay, so they're supposed to do that. Yeah, don't fall for it. In fact, the way you don't fall for it is by studying, Abu. So I hope you're actually practicing your maths before we get into these. All right, let's look at the probability rule. So the multiplication rule says the probability of A intersection or the probability of A and B is the probability of A multiplied by the probability of B. Then it says here the addition rule is the probability of A union, and that is the probability of A or B. Union B is the probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of A intersection B. Now that's very important. Let's talk about why this is. Right. If I have two events, A, B. If I have two events, event A, event B, if I want to take the union of these two, I'm going to take the probability of the whole of A And then I'm going to take the probability of the whole of B. And what you'll notice, if I take the probability of both of these, is that this middle part has been counted twice because I covered it in both purple and pink. So we've counted it twice. So because it's the intersection and it's been counted twice, we need to minus one of them in order to get the correct answer. Thumbs up. Is that making sense? All right, we need to remember that. The reason why the addition rule has that extra bit that we take out, that extra intersection, is because we count both of them. All right, so we can't count it twice. We only need to count it once in order for our answer to be accurate. All right, then the mutually exclusive event union is a little bit different from this one, right? In that two mutually exclusive events cannot happen at the same time. So let's say, for instance, we have a sample size and we've got odd numbers in A and we've got even numbers in B. Now, if I had to calculate the union of these two, I'm just going to say the probability of A plus the probability of B. Now, there is no intersection. So if these two events are mutually exclusive, there's no need for me to minus anything because they don't have any intersection. We didn't even count the intersection twice. We didn't count it at all. So there's no need for us to minus any of the intersections. So in mutually exclusive events, who can tell me what does that mean about the probability of a intersection B in a mutually exclusive event? What should the answer for the probability of A and B be? Absolutely, Abu, spot on. The answer should be 0. A and B should equal 0. All right. Then we'll talk about the complement. Now, before we talk about the complement, I just want to remind you guys that the probability of everything that we're doing, if we had to add the probability of everything going on in a question, all of them must equal 1. Okay, all the probabilities added together must equal 1. Right. So if they ask us for the probability of the complement, so if they say, what is the probability of not B? That's just going to be 1 minus the probability of B. All right. And if they ask you for the probability of A, you can just take 1 minus the probability of not A. Okay. And both of those things are quite important. They're going to come up. All right. So ladies and gents, are we ready for some practice? Shall we put some of the stuff into practice? Thumbs up. Yes. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to show you guys that what I'm showing you here actually comes from papers that you're going to have to write this year. So if you look at this example that we're looking at over here, we'll do 8.2 together in just a second, right? This particular paper is Mathematics Paper 1. It's a CAPS paper, grade 10, and it's from the Department of Basic Education, and it's the November 2018 paper. Now, the reason why in grade 10 we write external papers from the government is because you actually receive a certificate for finishing grade 10. All right. It's a particular certificate that you can actually use if you want to stop going to school. All right. So you do have the option to no longer go to high school after this. All right. So they will give you a certificate, and let's say, for instance, you want to go study to be an electrician, or you want to go study plumbing. You can go to a TVET college, or they're called vocational colleges, and you can take your grade 10 paper, and you can actually do that. All right. Okay. And since Sanele's seen this paper, I think I'm going to move on. We're going to go to the 2017 one. Okay. And Abu's also seen it. So we're going to change the paper for sure. All right. Narisha, no. I'm just going to double check. I know that I've said that this is an option, but everybody give me a thumbs up. We are all going to matric, right? We are all going to matric, right? Ah, Lerato. You, Gift, I'm talking about you. We are all going all the way to matric. Aha. Yes. Okay. And Sanele, the reason I'm changing the paper is because it doesn't do you any good to see a paper to write to practice with a paper you've already seen. It's not like a test where you're going to get a mark for it. Okay, it doesn't help you very much. Okay, so let's do a different one so that you actually learn something. How does that sound? Sound okay? Rather than us doing the same thing and then you're just like, I'm just relearning what I already know. And that's not the point of MathsLive. We are actually a tutoring company. Okay. So let's look at this question. This one is from the 2017 paper. This is from November 2017. All right, let's do 7.1. Okay, you will notice each of those questions is worth 1 mark. So I'm not going to spend forever here. Okay. I'm just going to read the question for you, the top part, and then I'm going to give everybody 3 minutes to answer the question. All right. Hi, Suga. Okay, answer this one anyway. I'll give you a challenge. The challenge will actually come in the quiz. That's tonight. Oh, I see, Abu. Okay, you know what? In that case, I'm going to start giving you guys papers from a different department rather than your own. Okay, I've got an idea, but we'll definitely look at different ones. But for those of you who have not seen it, let's engage with this. All right, we've got 3 minutes to answer these questions. Sanela and Abu, you still need to answer these 3 questions, please. All right, peeps, are we ready? Shall we look at the answers? Yes? Okay, amazing. All right, so this particular question is a little tricky in that the way that it's written tells us the story. Okay, so let's start with the beginning, the information that they give us. All right, and it's important that we understand exactly what they've given us. All right, they're saying here, 2 events A and B are complementary. That's a very important word. Remember, we spoke about the complement. We said that the complement of the one must equal the one or one minus the other, correct? We said that the complement of one must be one minus the other. So we know that if we have the probability of not A, then the probability of A is just going to be 1 minus the probability of not A, which is quite an important concept. And the probability of B is the same as the probability of 1 minus the probability of not B. All right, so let's look at the questions specifically. It's very important that we do this correct. Okay, it says here, complete the statement. Now, this is not just words they're asking for. This is a mathematical statement. It's a mathematical statement. So technically what they're asking us for is the rule. It's the rule that we're looking for. Okay. So if they say the probability of A plus the probability of B, what they want us to do is tell us what the probability of A plus B actually means in the mathematics of it. So they're asking us for the probability of, open brackets, A union B, right? Or the probability of A or B in this particular sense. Okay, so Tulani, you are correct, but look at the question. Are they asking us for the value or are they asking us for the mathematical statement? Are we seeing the difference in the two? Yes? Okay, they're not asking us for the answer. They're asking us to finish the statement. Do you get what ma'am is saying? Yes, I just want to make sure Kulani is with me. I hope I haven't confused you. Because your answer is correct, Kulani. Your answer is spot on, but that's not what they asked us for. Okay. So they're asking us for the statement here, not the answer. Now it says, write down the value of the probability of A and B. Now, let's think about this. These two things are complementary. So when A is happening, B is not. And when B is happening, A is not. So what do we call those two events? What do we call the two events when if one is happening, the other is not? Not complementary specifically. That's the one I'm looking for. Good. If they are complementary, then that means that they are mutually exclusive. That means that they are mutually exclusive. Okay, and what did we say about the intersection of two mutually exclusive events? How much should the intersection equal? That's it. The mutually exclusive events should have an intersection of 0, or the probability of the intersection is 0. All right, so the probability of A and B equals 0. Good. Then it says here, write down the probability of B. Now, the probability of B is that, and I'm going to explain exactly why. All right, so we've been told here that these two events are complementary. So now, if this is the probability of not A, that means that the probability of A is going to be 1 minus 0.35. That's going to make it 0.65. Now, we know that the probability of A and the probability of B together must give us 1. So that means, therefore, the probability of B is just going to be what A is not, which is just 0. All right, thumbs up. Does that make sense? Everybody okay with that? Excellent. Good stuff. All right. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, let's look at the next one. Everybody's going to have to draw a Venn diagram, so let's get used to it. Here's the questions. I want us to focus on 7.2.1 first. All right, let's read the information. It says here, a survey was conducted amongst 150 students, 150 learners in grade 10 at a certain school to establish how many of them owned the following devices, a smartphone or a tablet. It says here, X learners did not own either a smartphone or a tablet. 20 learners owned both a smartphone and a tablet. We should already know what that means. We should already know what that means, right? 48 learners owned a tablet, very important, and X learners owned a smartphone. So it's quite important that we get this right. Let's start with just the Venn diagram. Please pop your answer in the chat window. That's it. Kulani, I feel like you're giving away too many clues there. Maybe we shouldn't tell them what that means. They must understand. All right. All right, guys. I think that's where we're going to stop. Sanele, you've done that perfectly. Let's talk about why you've done this exactly the way that it needs to be done. All right. Okay, we're going to draw our Venn diagram. So first thing, we're going to draw our sample space. Here we go. And we can tell here we've got two events, so two circles. A circle and another circle. Let me just move that one a little bit. There we go. All right. So S is for smartphone, T is for tablet. So let's read the information properly. We know that our sample size, our NS, is equal to 50. Okay. 8 students would go on the outside because they don't own either of those. Now it says 20 learners owned both a smartphone and a tablet. That tells us that's our intersection. So 20 goes here. Right. Now it says 48 learners owned a tablet. Now, if we go and put 48 in here like this is wrong. Because if we look at the whole circle for tablet, 20 of these kids have already been counted. So in this part where it says 48 learners owned a tablet, there are only 28 of them that own a tablet only. So it's very important that we establish between a statement like owned a tablet and owned a tablet only. It's quite important. All right, so now all we have to do is figure out how many kids are missing. All right, and that will give us the answer that we're looking for here. Right, we know we've got 150 kids all together, right? So we just need to minus how many kids we already have. So we're going to get 150 minus 28 minus 20 minus 8. And that is going to give us 94 kids. Now, 94 kids owned a smartphone, right? 94 kids owned a smartphone. So this is 94 because that's a smartphone only. If we add all of these numbers up in here, they must give us 150. So you cannot then take that 94. Sorry, let me just double check my calculations. Correct. You cannot then say 94 own a smartphone and then minus 20 from that. Because if you do that, your number is going to come out as 130 and not 150. So please, please be very, very careful. Okay, do not then take that 94 and minus 20 from it. Your answer is going to come out correct. All right, so your answer is for smartphone only is 94 as we see it. All right, so our X is 94. All right, now it says here, how many learners owned only a smartphone? We can do the calculation the way that I've done it here, or we can use that method that we know to use, right? We know that if this whole thing over here, if the whole of S is X, then this part over here would be X minus 20. And you can draw up the, you can do out the calculation as we go, right? So you can say X minus 20 plus 20 plus 28 plus 8, all of that plus 150. And you can work your way backwards for X. You'll find exactly that. All right. Oh, sorry, I'm lying. No, I'm not. I'm not lying. I'm actually quite correct. Yes. I think my answer may have come out incorrect. Yeah, no, my answer is correct. My answer would come out as 114. Sorry, guys. It's 114. Sorry, Sanele. The answer would come out as 114. So X is equal to 114. But because they want only a smartphone, we're going to have to take 114 minus 20. Okay, so 3 steps, therefore 3 marks. Okay, you guys are spot on. And I was, and I was testing you guys, and you passed, Sanela and Marisha. Those 8 children use pigeons to send messages. Or they just use diaries. They write letters. We write letters. Okay. All right. And then it says, calculate the probability. Good. So now we're going away from just number of people to the probability. And remember, guys, your probability of any event is going to be the event size over the sample size. So it's important that we do both. All right. So it says probability that a learner selected at random from this group owned only a smartphone. So we know that the probability of owning only a smartphone would be 94 over 150. And we need to reduce that. We do not leave any of our fractions this way. You need to make sure that it's the simplest fraction that you can get. So 47. All right. 7.3, 2.3 wrong. Oh, B. Okay. All right. Let's talk about what they mean here. All right. It says here, calculate the probability that a learner selected at random owned at most one type of device. At most one. So the minimum that you can get for a device is 1. So what's that? What that's going to tell us is that this kid should have a minimum of 1 device. That kid will have a minimum of 1 device. And those kids over there will also have a minimum of one device. So our probability should be 94 plus 20 plus 28 over 150. Okay, or you can just say 150 minus 8, which is 142. So it would be 142 over 150. And again, we need to reduce our fraction to make sure that it's the simplest fraction we have. And that's going to give us 71 over 70. Okay, that's the answer we're looking for. All right, thumbs up. Everybody okay here? Are we all good? Lovely. Amazing. All right. Okay, shall we move on to a little bit of finance? Yes, let's do a little finance. Okay. I'm just going to remind us before we get into finance of all the things we should know about finance before we get there. All right. So remember, simple interest is this is the calculation for simple interest. Okay, A equals P, open brackets, 1 plus I times N. Let's remind ourselves what the A stands for. A stands for the accumulated amount. That's the amount you should get at the end of your calculation. P stands for the principal amount. Principal means first, so the start amount. Our I is our interest rate, and it's always calculated as a percentage. So remember, you're going to have to click percent on your calculator. And if you don't click percent on your calculator, you need to take the interest rate and divide by one or the other. You cannot leave it exactly like that. All right. Then the N is always the number of years. You need to remember that. All of this also translates to compound interest as well. All right. When do we use each of these? If a question says something, 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 simple interest, we use the simple interest formula, obviously. Also, if we're looking at a hire purchase agreement question, we will also use simple interest. So hire purchase, if you hear the word somebody buys something on a hire purchase agreement, then you know that we're looking at that. And we know that for hire purchase, sometimes they will ask us for a deposit. All right. When do we use compound interest? Obviously, if the question says compound interest. If they ask us for inflation of any kind, we're going to calculate using that. And the population growth. So if they say the population of people in Gauteng grows by this much, how many people will they be in 10 years' time? We use population growth calculations. All right, thumbs up. Everybody okay with this? I feel like we did finance just the other day. So we must be quite familiar with it. We didn't do it that long ago. So it must be fresh in our minds. All right, let's look at the question. Again, this is from the 2017 paper. I'm going to skip that one and we're going to go to this one over here. All right, we're just going to answer 4.1. I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to answer 4.1. Please go ahead and calculate for those 3 questions. So 1.1, 1.2, and 5 minutes, peeps. Let's go for it. Hi, Sanele. I feel like your teachers need to start creating new material. That's very lazy. I know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to prepare you guys for the national exam. Why are they doing it? Why are they not creating their own things? These teachers, very skeleton. All right, peeps, are we ready? Shall we look at the answers? Well, Sanel is the only one with the thumbs up, and we know that's a cheat code right now. So we'll give everybody else one more minute. Is that your plan, Lerato, to go all the way to the US? It's going to cost you more to get there and come back than just to buy the phone here. So I think it would be best if you just bought it here. Or I think the best thing to do is maybe just ask someone who's already going to the US to get it for you. Just give them the money and they'll bring it back for you. Okay, yes, Sanele, I will. I promise. I will give you hot stuff for the next one. All right, guys, let's have a look at these answers. All right, it says here, 7 years ago, Mrs. Gray decided to invest 18,000 Rand in a bank account that paid simple interest at 4.5% per annum. So we're going to label things. 7 years ago, that's our N. Our N is 7 and equals 7, right? Mrs. Gray decided to invest 18,000 Rand. She invested this 7 years ago. So that is the beginning. There's our P. Right, in a bank account, and it paid a simple interest good, so we know which formula we're using at 4.5% per annum. So what's our right? Now it says calculate how much interest. Now it's very, very important that we remember the difference between interest rate and interest. Thumbs up. Do we remember the difference between interest rate and interest? Yes? Lovely. Okay, remember, interest rate refers to that percentage. Interest is big I, it's capital I, and capital I is going to be our A value minus our P value. Right, so it's very important to do that. Okay, and the reason why it's only a 2-mark question is because you can do it in one go. I'll show you how we're going to do that. We can write here, our interest is going to be our A value. Now we know that our A value is going to be the calculation. 15,000 open brackets 1 plus 4.5%. Sorry, 4.5% times 7. And that will give us our A value. And we're just going to minus from that our P value, which is 18,000. So you can do this all one calculation on your calculator. You don't need to separate it into 2 separate calculations. Okay. 4.5% times 7, close brackets, minus 18. And that would give us 5,670. 5,670. Okay. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense, Narisha. You can do it separately, but you'll be wasting time. You can do it all in one go. Lovely, because that is A. We know exactly what A is. A is equal to P open bracket 1 plus I. Okay, the next one says, Mrs. Gray wants to buy a television set that costs 27,660 Rand now. If the average rate of inflation over the last 5 years was 6.7% per annum, calculate the cost of the television set 5 years ago. 5 years ago. So we're going backwards. So this amount that we've got over here is not our P value, that is our A value. Right. And we want to know the cost of the TV 5 years ago. So we are looking for P. right? But because we're calculating inflation, we need to use the compound interest formula. So we know compound interest, A equals P, open brackets, 1 plus I to the power of N. And in this case, because we don't know what P is, we need to get P on its own. So we're going to divide both sides by 1 plus I to the power of N, divide this side by 1 plus I to the power of N. So our P value is going to equal 27,660 over, open bracket, 1 plus. Our interest rate is 6.7% to the power of the number of years, 5 years. So to the power. All right, and we can find the answer there. Is going to be 20,000. Is it 20,000 on the dot? I don't know about that. 60 divided by 1 plus. Abu, I know I'm very suspicious of you, but I know that you've done the correct job. Yes, you have done the correct job. Well done. I was just checking to see if you're doing the right things, and you absolutely did do the right things. Well done. You absolutely did the right things. It's 20%. I'm sorry, it's 20,000. I don't know why it's not coming up. Oh, I see. All right. I'm sorry. Sorry, Abu. I know it's been a long day. It has been. I don't even know why it's a long day. You're on holiday. Hey, Bo. Are you not on holiday? Abu, this sounds like you're cheating. Yeah. All right. Let's look at the next question. The next question says, exactly. Oh, I see. I get you. All right. So let's look at what they want from us in this last question. It says here, at what rate of simple interest? So what do they actually want us to calculate for? What are we calculating for? Rate of interest. That's it. We're calculating for I. We're calculating for I. And they tell us that we must use the simple interest formula for I, right? Which says, at what rate of interest should Mrs. Gray have invested her money 7 years ago? So that's our N. Our N is 7. If she intends on, they forgot on, buying the television set now using only her original investment of 18,000 Rand and the interest earned over the last 7 years. Okay, so here's what they're actually saying. They're saying she's going to use the 18,000 Rand plus the interest that she's earned over those years. Okay, so if she's going to invest 18,000 7 years ago, right? She's going to invest it 7 years ago. And she knows that from that 18,000, she's going to get 5,670 if she invests at that interest rate. Okay, what interest rate must she actually put it in order for it to get to 27,660? So what they're saying is that our P is 18,000. Our A is 27,660. And we want to do this 7 years from now. Okay, we want to do this 7 years from now. So we want to know what interest rate we need to put in order for us to end up with the amount that we want when the time comes for us to buy the TV. Am I making sense? Everybody with me? Yes, or we're a bit lost? Okay, lovely. That's what we want. We want to find out what interest rate must she go and ask the bank for if she wants to afford the TV 7 years from now. So we're calculating for I, but we're using the simple interest formula. So again, we know A equals P, open bracket, 1 plus I times N. And we want to make I the subject of the formula. So first thing we're going to do, divide by P divided by P. Right. So now I've got A over P equals 1 plus I times N. And then I'm going to transpose the 1. The 1 goes over. So we'll have A over P minus 1 is equal to I times N. And then I know that I must divide this by N. Remember to divide the whole thing by N. And remember that one thing teacher told you about clicking on the calculator. We need to click those things right. So I will equal A over P minus 1 all over N. So when we click that minus 1, our bracket over here, or our denominator, our division sign must move with it in order for us to do this correctly. So we'll say I equals A, which is 27,660 over 18,000 minus 1 over 7. That's the question. That's the answer. And remember, because our interest rate is calculated over 100, it will give you a particular answer. Okay, so we need to be very careful. Remember, we're going to click the fraction button twice. So your fraction should look like this on the calculator. So click it twice, and then at the top you'll put 27,660 over 18,123. And then once you've done that, do not go down and put in the 5. Leave this one blank. So you're going to go 27,660 over 18,000. Then click the button to the right so that your calculator starts blinking over here. And then do that. Go minus 1. Because then what's going to happen is your fraction sign will extend. All right. If you don't do that, the minus 1 will be over here. The minus 1 will do that, minus 1, and your answer is going to come out negative, and that's wrong. So go to the right, then go minus 1, and you'll see your division sign getting longer, and then divide. Now go to the bottom and add in your 7. Then you would go to the bottom, and you would add in 7 to make sure that you get the correct answer. All right. And the answer we will get here, just click SD. We get 0,076666. So I'm going to just cap it at 0,77. But because it's interest, it's calculated out of 100. So we're just going to take this and multiply that by 100. Therefore, our answer should be 7,7%. All right.